Hey everybody, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Welcome back to my channel. I am here for 15 inks in 30 days. No, I'm not doing 30 inks 30 days. I don't have the capacity to do 30 inks 30 days, so I thought I'd split it to 15 inks over 30 days. And basically this is doing one ink over the course of 2 days, which I feel like gives me more time with each pen and ink combination, but also still allows me to try out 15 different pen and ink combinations in 1 month. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swatch it here and write the name of the pen and ink, but also then once I'm done with it, write my rating of it. Then in my A6 Hobonichi Hone, I already have all of the papers set up. I have 6 papers here, and then I'm going to swatch on the Tomoe River paper. I'm going to do a Zentangle. I just realized I'm going to do a Zentangle on top of those, which I really shouldn't have done. And then I'm going to paint a rose on here. I'm also going to journal with it in my A5 multi-year journal, but I won't be showing that in this video. Right, let's get started. The first pen and ink combination is Ferris Wheel Press Buttered Popcorn, and I have put it in my Esterbrook Esty in the tortoise shell. So what I'm going to do here, I realize you're very close and personal to my hand here. I am going to swatch a bit here on my Speedball B nib, and I have this linked in the description below. Whoops, so I'll do a quick swatch here so that you can see the color. Wash that off here a bit, and then I'm going to do some line widths here underneath with my Kakimori steel nib so you can see the different line widths as well. Oh, look at that. It's such a fun yellow, but also still quite legible. Love that. Then I'm going to write the name of the ink. So we've got, oh, I didn't do my stamp, but that's okay. We have, well, 15 inks. So we'll start with the ink. Ferris Wheel Press. Buttered Popcorn. And if you are interested in this ink, I will be posting a video later this month with some inks that I found that may be similar to this. So stay tuned for that. So Esterbrook Esty in Tortoise. Woo. And this has a fine nib. Next, I'm going to do some swatches here on the different papers. So the first is doing the swatch on the Tomoe River paper. Then we have the Rhodia paper. Then we have the Endless Regalia paper. Then we have the Cosmo paper. I'm running out of this, so probably for the month of May, I'll switch that Cosmo to Eurofil paper, which was sent to me by pen friend Kat. Thank you very much. Then we have onion skin paper. That's probably my favorite for swatching. And then Yamamoto Bank. And then Bank paper. Like, how cool does that look? I love being able to see the ink on these different papers because you can see on the Rhodia, it looks a lot more orange. There's a lot of shading coming out on the Tomoe River paper. And then even on the onion skin, actually, that looks a little more orange, whereas on the Cosmo, it looks just a little bit flat. Maybe that's just the paper itself, but then you're seeing a little bit more orange and yellow on the Yamamoto Bank and the Bank. So I'm going to draw out the grid for my Zentangle using this ruler that I purchased from Michael's years and years ago. I don't even know if you can still get it, so I do apologize. Then once I've drawn out the grid, and this grid measures basically 5 boxes across and 5 boxes down, or 20 grid boxes each way, then I'm going to draw the Zentangle. And this one is inspired by Varney Hikarni on Instagram. I love these because they really show off the shading properties of the ink that you can't always get in a writing sample. Then just a quick rose. I like doing these because you can see the really saturated ink. And this isn't a great rose here, but then I'll add a little bit of water and you can see the way that the water affects the ink. Not one of my best roses, but you can definitely see the difference in the ink once water's been added to it. So that's why I like painting the roses. It shows off a different dimension to the ink. There we go. Lovely. So there is the finished Zentangle. I really enjoy being able to do these. I think it really brings out the properties of the ink that don't necessarily come out when you're just writing, because when you're doing Zentangles, you're doing the same strokes over and over again and possibly running over the same spots over and over again, which then there's that pooling of the ink, which really brings out the shading. So really lovely ink. This color is a bit light when it first goes down, but it is not completely illegible. There's some other yellows I've tried that are very hard to read. I think it would be too dry in an extra fine, but it's perfect in a fine or anything broader. I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level a 10. And when I say comfort level, I do refer to the pen, not that the ink is comfortable. So that is day 1, or pen and ink pairing 1. Ferris Wheel Press buttered popcorn and my Esterbrook SD tortoise. The next ink and pen combination is Sailor Ink Studio 273, and I have it inked in my Pilot Kakuno. This is the new Madarome pinks, or the drowsy pink. Really excited for this one. So putting some down on the paper with my Speedball V-nib, and you can tell why I like this. It is a dusty pink. I love this, and I sampled this quite a while ago and then finally bought myself a bottle of this ink, and I'm so glad that I did. It's one of those that I think I couldn't not have this this ink in my collection because it's just so pretty. Then writing with, and I just think, like, look at that, it's a perfect match for the pen. And I love this series. This has a fine nib and it's a gold plated fine nib here. So the ink is Sailor Ink Studio 273, and the pen is my Pilot Kakuno in Madarome pink with a fine nib. Oh, so pretty. So now I'm in my Hobonichi A6 hone, and I'm going to take some and paint some on the Tomoe River paper, then some on the Rhodia paper. Oops, that's too much. I always end up putting too much on the Rhodia paper. Then Regalia, then Cosmo. I'll actually take some of that here. Then the onion skin. I still love the onion skin so much because of just the way it feels. Probably not the smoothest paper for writing, but it's just such an interesting paper texturally. And look at how on the Tomoe River paper, there's just the chromo shading happening. There's like the edging that's brown and green. And then you can actually see it. It's a little bit lighter on the Yamamoto bank, which always surprises me. And then darker on the Rhodia because I added so much there. But then also lighter on the Cosmo Airlight paper. But this shading doesn't seem to show, or the chromo shading doesn't seem to show so much on the bank, but you can definitely see it on the Yamamoto bank. And then the Regalia, I really think I just got a bad batch of that paper. I'm wondering if I should just replace that altogether and stop using that for comparison. But again, love this dusty pink, and I love the complexity behind it. Now, before I do my Zentangle, I'm going to quickly paint the rose here, because I like showing how water, or adding water, can affect the ink. Look at that. Oh, Henry's going to come down shortly to say goodnight. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. So going back in and drawing out the grid with my Michaels ruler, I actually really love having the A6 hone as my dedicated Zentangle book. Doing a grid that's 5 across and 5 down is a really great size and a manageable size for me. This particular Zentangle is also from Wearingeul, and what I love about Zentangles is that every one of them can look so different, but at the end of the day, it really is about the pen strokes on the page and getting meditative about that process that you just do over and over again with your pen. Now it is ink number 3. I keep saying day 3, but it's ink number 3. Ink and pen combination number 3 is Wearingeul Atlas, and I have this in my Narwhal Voyage Tromso. It's not an exact match, but I thought it's such a fun, look at that in the barrel there. So I'm gonna make sure that this is agitated, and I'm going to put some on my Speedball B nib here. Oh, just look at that. Look at that blue shimmer. That is fun. So fun. Cleaning off my Speedball B nib and then going with my stainless steel Kakamori nib. It is really fun to see the line widths. Look at that. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'd know I don't normally go for blues. So Kat was just so generous in sending me so many blues. And I'm so excited to try that one and use that one properly. So we have, gosh, where is the ink now? Wearingeul. And the ink is Atlas. And I'm actually really good about putting shimmer inks in this pen because it actually handles shimmer really well. So Narwhal Voyage Tromso. And this has a fine nib. It's a really smooth, fine nib. And yeah, handles shimmers really well. The next thing I'm going to do is paint the ink on these different papers. Now I've put some of the ink into a palette like this just so that I don't contaminate the sample. So I've got Rhodia paper here, then Endless Regalia paper, Cosmo paper, then onion skin, which is probably my favorite for doing swatches, then Yamamoto bank, and then bank. Seeing this makes me think that I did not put enough shimmer in the other samples. And then before I do my Zentangle, I'm going to do a little rose here at the bottom. If you hear rustling in the back, that is Lucy playing with her toy, like totally beating it up. She has this one toy that she absolutely loves. She's in a monogamous relationship with this toy, and she's taken all the stuffing out of this toy. It's literally just the casing of this toy that's left. I have to remember how far I can go up. Not my best rose, but I love doing this because of just the different line variations you can see when doing a rose like that. So I'll let this dry and then I'll start on my Zentangle. So I'm going to measure out the grid with my ruler from Michaels. I bought this years ago. Still, I don't think it's still available. And then I will go ahead and start my Zentangle. This one is from Wearingeul on Instagram. And this is one I've done before. One of the things that I have to really accept with a Zentangle is that not every line is going to be perfect, and that's okay because it's just about the practice. And I find these so meditative, but also just so fun to look at once I'm done. There's the finished Zentangle for Wearingeul Atlas, and just look at the shimmer. I'm hoping that the camera, there we go. can pick that up. The Narwhal Voyage Tromso actually does really well. That fine nib does really well with shimmer, and Wearingeul does their shimmer inks really well. So I knew that was going to be a great combination. Again, not a lot of variation between the different papers, but that shimmer is stunning. Loved that. Love how that looks. This was a really fun pen and ink combo. No issues with the flow, and the shimmer is actually quite consistent. And I don't normally have issues with shimmer in this pen. Lovely, lovely pairing. So I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Narwhal a 9. This pen has not disappointed me when it comes to shimmer inks. That fine nib on this Narwhal is actually really great with shimmers, although I don't really want to test it with some of the Robert Oster shimmers. But anyway, really great, fun combination, and I'm so glad I got to try this. So that is pen and ink pairing number 3, Wearingeul Atlas with Narwhal Voyage Tromso. Ink number 5 is Wearingeul Medea Beliar. Am I saying that correctly? And it is in my Mayfair Pens Narya model in the English Garden. So this is a shimmer ink. I'm going to make sure to agitate it so that I do get all of that shimmer. And taking my Speedball B nib once again. I love this nib. I only use it for swatching inks. Look at that. That is a fun, bright purple. And then taking my Kakimori steel nib and doing the line widths. Oh, look at that. That is a super fun purple. Oh, that is not a straight line. That is okay. Cleaning off my nib here. And look at just the shimmers. That looks psychedelic. I love that. So if you're not familiar with the Narya model from Mayfair Pens, it is a pocket pen and it is an eyedropper pen, and the cap actually screws on to the back, so you get a full-size pen here. So this is Wearingeul Medea Beliar. And this is in my Mayfair Pens Narya English. And look at the finished Zentangle. I just love how all of the lines intersect, and then the big pattern that comes up. It looks like an optical illusion when you look at it like that. So, so fun. And then looking at the ink on the dried paper samples now, it does look lighter on the Yamamoto bank, but then generally the same across all of them. It's a beautiful purple ink. I love this shimmer ink. It's purple, it's shimmery, what's not to love? It's also very well behaved in this fine Yovo nib. There's consistent shimmer throughout, and it's just such a fun ink to write with. So I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of this pen a 9. One of the things I love about 15 inks over 30 days is the ability to try so many different inks in a more structured pattern. I know some people hate the structure, but for me, it's nice to know that I have 2 days with this pen and ink combination. So 2 days in my journal, and then I have 1 or 2 days in my work notebook, and then I do the Zentangle and the ink swatches. So that structure for me really helps me get through so many inks in this month. But anyway, the Wearingeul Medea Beliar, really beautiful ink. I love the shimmer. It's just so fun. And I mean, how fun is it to see it, sloshing around in that Mayfair pens. So that is my Mayfair pens Naria English Garden with Wearingeul Medea Belliar. I have ink number 5, or pen and ink pairing number 5, which is Ink Institute Lavender Coral, and I have it inked in my new Jinhao 10. This is in the gray gradient. I originally had this ink in my Le Bon Rosa in Cracked Ice, but it was just so wet. I don't think it's the ink that is that wet. I think it's actually the nib. But anyway, so I'm gonna do a swatch here with my Speedball B nib. And I love doing the swatches because the swatches can really show off the chromo shading that is in these inks. Wow, I'm filming this and I am not prepared. And then here, taking my Kakimori steel nib here and doing the line widths. I love how smooth that is. And then some figure 8s. Well, kind of. Then I'm going to close that. See how that's already changing color? Now we have here Ink Institute Lavender Coral. Do you remember how wet this was in my Le Bon Rosa? The ink itself is not that wet, it's the pen. But anyway, this is in my Jinhao 10, and this is the gray gradient, and this has an extra fine nib. Yeah, I really like how it is in this pen. So do some figure 8s. And this nib is really smooth. Beautiful. Next, I'm going to paint a little bit into my A6 Hobonichi Hone, and then paint it across the different papers. I love doing this because, especially with a mono or a chromo shading ink, it reacts so differently to all these papers. And then you can see just the difference. This is all science, people, all science. And I have 6 different papers here. And look at that. Look at how pink it already is drying on the Rhodia. Look at all of the chromo shading properties that are happening on the Tomoe River paper. And then here as well. The Regalia, I think I need to replace that with a different paper, probably after this 15 inks 30 days, because it's not a great batch. And then I'm going to grab a little here, and then just confirming how far my Zentangles go to just underneath the 0. Okay. I like doing these roses because they're actually a really simple exercise. It's all about starting light, heavy pressure, light. And it's just C curves. Light, heavy pressure, light. And then I'm going to add a tiny bit of water to get just a different shading here. Probably not my best rose. That's okay. Oh, now I got some on my nail. And then, oh, the thing with this is practice. And it's all about getting used to doing that motion with your hands. So now I am going to draw out the grid for my Zentangles. And the process that I do these by, I get a lot of inspiration from other artists on Instagram, and I really like the ones with a lot of fine lines. So I measure out the grid, and the grid is basically 20 small grid squares across, 20 down, or 5 across, 5 down. And then with this particular Zentangle, there's 4 curved lines, a diagonal line, and then all of the finer lines in between. What I like about these particular Zentangles is that once you're done, it makes a bigger shape, and I love the way they look when they're done. And there's the finished Zentangle. I did screw up a little bit on the middle piece, but I love how that looks. I love Zentangles that you can't tell what the bigger picture is going to look like just from that one square, but oh, how fun is that? But I also love the ones with all of those little lines. I don't know why, but I love that. It is meditative for me just doing the same line over and over again. For some people, that would drive them nuts, but not me. But anyway, just look at how that has dried. I don't know if it's picking that up on camera, but on these papers down here, and even on the Tomoe River paper, you can see more of a pinky purple base, whereas on the Cosmo and the Regalia, it looks darker and more gray. So again, really interesting how this Ink Institute Lavender Coral is such a chromo shader. I had to try this in my new Jinhao 10, but the ink is a tad dry, which was so different from when I had it in the Le Bon 325 or in Le Bon Rosa last week. There's not a ton of shading in this extra fine nib or when you're writing with it, and it looks more gray in the writing sample. So I gave the ink an 8. It's beautiful, but when you're writing with it, you don't get all of those beautiful colors. The flow an 8 and the comfort level of the Jinhao 10 an 8. It's a bit unfortunate because I mean, it's a beautiful pen, a beautiful ink, and I just wish though that more of that variation would come out in the extra fine or fine nibs. But that's the thing with ink though, is that while they look beautiful in ink swatches like this, that variation doesn't always come out in the writing sample. And that's okay, but that also helps me decide what inks to buy, knowing that while it looks beautiful here, it may not show that variation here. So there are all of the pen and ink pairings for the first 5 days of, well, 5 days, 5 inks of 15 inks over 30 days. What are your thoughts on these pen and ink combinations? There's such a variety in here, and I love 15 inks over 30 days versus 30 inks over 30 days because it allows me the time to really get to know each combination. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to be doing this series for the remainder of the month, so watch out for another video in maybe a couple weeks. I don't know, in a couple weeks to do inks 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the series. All right, thank you all so much for watching and have yourselves a great day.